with James G Real Estate, and I've got my girl Jess from Guild Mortgage joining us today. So we're definitely excited to be here, and what we're going to be talking is kind of like our experience from our last clients, right, Jess?
That's right. Hi, Alfyn. First of all, thank you for having me again. It's been a while, but it's nice to be back. And yeah, I mean, that experience was amazing. I can't stop talking about it. So I'm glad we're talking about it here.
Me too. And while we wait for people to maybe even hop on, I'd like to just share this live to like some groups. So we'll just take a couple, like a minute or two while I do that. How's your day going, Jess?
I've been busy. Lots of calls, lots of things that to take care of. Offers are getting accepted. So that's good.
That's awesome. Busy
How's
is
yours?
good. Same, same.
Yeah.
Getting organized, all the things.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a Stark or something. I don't know if we have any Game of Thrones watchers here, but I keep repeating, winter is coming, winter is coming, so I have to hustle.
I say that all the time. So definitely, winter is coming.
Winter is coming, so we gotta prepare, plant our seeds.
Absolutely. All right. So I would just posted it on a couple groups. But all right, let's talk about our experience. Um, we definitely learned that patience, pivoting, and how
Yes.
our clients went from credit challenges to finally getting the keys, even after, facing a lot of hurdles. Like, for
Mhm.
example, solar and the new
Oof.
build delay, indecision, even to a point where they wanted to back out. So
Yes. I
let's
mean,
kind of go ahead.
let's start with the fact that when I got our buyers, they weren't actually ready on the credit score aspect. So that can be really heartbreaking for a lot of people. And I have noticed that for a lot of people, that can be kind of like the standstill where, I tried, it didn't work out. It is what it is, move on. But they didn't give up and they listened to our advice and they worked really hard and did exactly what we suggested. And guess what? We got them to the finish line in 4 months. Was it 4 or 5 months? I believe I got them as a client back in June, I want to say. And that's when we started with the pre qualification. That's where we realized in order to get you to where you want to be, we need to improve credit score. They, sorry, am I still frozen?
You're okay now. This is the joys of
Okay.
live. We're live streaming.
I apologize. A phone call came in and I'm doing this on my phone. So it paused everything. I was trying to say is we pretty much set them up on a credit improvement plan that outlined exactly what steps they needed to follow. I remember
Mhm.
vividly adding them to our group chat text and just checking in with them every few weeks and asking, hey, have you done this first thing? Okay, you did. Have you done the second thing? And it was a lot of teamwork, really, but they really wanted it. And I think that's the key. Do you want it bad enough to put the effort in?
Absolutely. And I feel like, it wasn't fast. Like, I know it took some time. It took some checking in to see if they've, done the steps that they needed to do. And I know you worked really hard to, kind of not help them navigate through improving their credit. It
Hmm.
definitely wasn't overnight. So every small win mattered. And honestly, watching their dedication reminded us of like progress is still progress, no matter how slow it feels. So I love that this is one of the samples where you just do like the little things, and over time we reach to the finish line because it really did feel like a long process to me because there were so many steps in order for us to get to where we wanted to be, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, they got the full works package. That's what I call it. We did credit improvement, we looked at savings, we came up with the savings plan. I mean, you name it, we did everything we could to get them to the finish line, and they got there. So the first step was getting their credit score ready. And then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, on average, about 2 months after, I checked again. Credit score was ready as expected within the right timeline. And I gave them the call where it was like, "Hey guys, congratulations! All your hard work is is showing, and we're 100% ready to go." And we got them in the office, met with them, got them fully pre-approved. There was a moment where they kind of stopped to think about, is right now really the time to buy? Because we did get them into a home with no cash out of pocket, and there's a reason for it, and that's because we had no cash out of pocket. So they really had a hard time wrapping their minds around how the hell are Alfyn and Jess going to get us into a brand new home and not ask us for a single cent out of pocket. They almost didn't believe it, and that was almost the reason why they stopped shopping altogether, because they wanted to replenish their savings. They almost didn't, again, believe that we could get them into a home with no money out of pocket, and we did.
Absolutely. So, rewind a little bit before getting to that portion is there was a moment in the journey where they were looking at new builds, and that wasn't in the picture for them after going through, looking at a couple homes and going through the process. And that's when the, unsettling emotions came in, where to they even called me and said, Alfyn, we're just gonna stop.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot because, first, there's a lot of emotions involved when it's, when you're in the home buying process and journey. And whenever your is invested in one thing and it doesn't go that way, a lot of times people are going to just quit or stop,
Mhm.
right? But the moment I got that text message, I was like, okay, let me help you walk this through. And I, told him, hey, can we just please pause for a second and kind of go back to what did we get approved now for? And then from there kind of got them back into the game because they were both pretty much done. They were both pretty much like, no, we're going to stop. I don't think this is going to be for us. We're not going to get the home that we want. They're very particular as well. Like they don't want just any home. They want a home to build their family that's fairly new. So I'm like, okay, well, what if I told you we can go back to the drawing board and start looking? But this time let's be prepared. Let's be prepared to have an open mind and heart. And I will, if you trust me good enough, I'm going to walk you through step by step on how we're going to strategize and go about each home. And then I said, what do you say? Well, I'm so glad that they said yes. And we started back on the market, looking back on the market, looking back at homes. And before we even opened the first door, I'm like, hey, remember what I told you guys? They're like, what? You know, to have top three, four in mind. We're not going to settle in top one. We're going to look at top three or even top four.
Mhm.
And they're like, all right, let's do this. And so by the end of our showings, they were like, Alvin, we got our top three. I was like, all right. Well, nothing is promised, but let's work with your top one. So with the top one, yeah, I did my best, my diligence to call the agent and be like, hey, this is where we're at. Is your seller open to credits and all these things before we even move forward with an offer? And that agent luckily was like, yes, yes, yes. And I was like, all right, maybe this is it. Let's go. So, preparing my our clients emotionally and how it's gonna look definitely played a huge part with moving on when they were already like, no, this is not gonna work. So at that point, we dove in, we got an offer accepted. And what I love, it's crazy because who would have thought we could get 6% in the start of it, right? Because that's a lot. But that's what I tell my buyers. It's a buyer's market. You know, you'll see homes going down value, right? And sellers are now expected to possibly pay for some seller credit. So that's kind of like the home that we found is like, okay, are you willing? They understand the market and they said yes. So we
Mm-hmm.
went in and got accepted for 6%, and boom, there's solar, right? But the reason why we went in with this home is because they were willing to pay off the solar. And this is
And
kind of where,
can
go
we
ahead.
explain why solar is such a big deal? Because we're talking to regular schmegular, probably first time home buyers that have no idea how a solar can be a problem. And when we say solar, we mean a solar loan. So someone, the owner of the house, installed solar panels to, in the long run, save some money. And these loans can be an issue when buying a new home and that home still has a loan for the solar panels, because now you as the new buyer, you now have to adopt that new loan. Meaning if I quoted you X amount for your monthly mortgage payment, now you also have to consider an extra amount that you'll be paying towards that solar loan that the current owner of that property purchased. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be a big deal because a lot of the times we're really tight on numbers. And maybe you qualify for exactly what the home is selling for, but now you're having to qualify for that solar loan on top of it. And that could be a deal breaker. So that's where we have to get really creative. You have to have a good team on your corner, realtor and lender, who know the ins and outs of these kinds of loans to help you still accomplish what you're looking to accomplish in a way that it doesn't hurt you so much when qualifying. So that was one of the big
100%.
hurdles here. Our clients were very mortgage payment sensitive, meaning they needed this exact mortgage payment in order to move forward with a new home purchase, which is really smart. As a buyer, you have to know your limits, you have to know your budget, and they did. So we had to work around this budget where the solar just was kind of like thrusted at us, and now we're having to figure out if you can actually pay the extra 120 or $200 that that solar loan is charging. Not just that, we now have to figure out if you can even assume that solar loan, which is something we really worked with on our end as well.
Oh, 100%. The property had solar panels. And as simple as that sound, it definitely came with a lot of extra layers. Ownership versus lease, um, transfer paperwork, and just making sure our buyer understood what they were taking on, right?
Mhm.
This is the ownership part. They were going to assume the loan. And that's part of the negotiation process is that we were able to negotiate solar with credits. So, with maxing out seller credits, we were able to kind of be creative with some of the hurdles that we've encountered. So, one is the solar. Two, there's a rent buyout, which
Mhm.
was a hefty amount, and making sure the closing cost is going to be paid off. So,
Yes.
having to negotiate in the beginning the 6%, we were able to get creative with the rest. So and it wasn't easy at all. There was a lot of good communication, a lot of back and forth, a lot of um, dealing with the solar company, trying to make sure that we're on track, that we're doing what we needed to do, because we didn't a little bit about the solar. You need to be at a target balance for it to be even capable of assuming, because the seller had um, just had put it on not too long ago, like last year. So for us to be able to assume it, where the balance had to be a certain amount. So long story short, there's a lot of things that goes in and out in between, like the transaction within the 30 days before we even can breathe.
Yes. I mean, I'll make it quick and I'll give you guys a list of everything we accomplished with our buyers. First of all, we got them into the FHA Zero Down Payment Assistance Program, which covered the entirety of the down payment obligation. To put that into perspective, FHA does require a minimum 3.5% down. So that's exactly what we were able to cover through the assistance program, their entire down payment. So that was something that they could confidently forget about and not have to worry about. Perfect. Now we have the hurdle of the closing costs, right? Those are on average about 3 to 4%, 4% if the house is newer, 3 to 4% of the price of the home. So again, remember that I mentioned we didn't have many savings in the bank to cover really any closing costs out of pocket. That is where that 6% seller credit came in and covered the entirety of their closing costs.
Mhm.
Perfect. Buyer did not have to come up with closing costs, nor did they have to come up with the down payment for their home. That's not where it ended. It was about 7 to 8 grand in rent buyout to get them out of their current rent lease. The seller credit covered that. Seller was able to cover that through the credit. On top of that, seller needed to pay about 6 grand more towards the solar loan so that it could be within the assumable loan amount that our buyers needed. So he put 6 grand towards that. Now that's exactly what that 6% seller credit accomplished. It accomplished to cover all the closing costs, it accomplished to cover that rent buyout, and on top of that, the seller was still within that same 6% so that they could also buy down that loan amount. And that way our buyer could assume it. Now, what's really nerve wracking about all of this is that the solar loan company does not confirm whether our buyer can assume it or qualify for it
Mhm.
until the amount has been brought down. So the seller still needed to buy down that loan amount without even knowing that these buyers, sorry, would be able to qualify for it.
Mhm.
So thank God they did. Everything worked out just fine, but that's just kind of the hurdles that you have to jump through whenever there is a solar loan. So if you are a homeowner and you're thinking of installing solar panels, that's just kind of food for thought, something to think about that could be a problem if you're not thinking you're going to be in that home for the long run.
Absolutely. It definitely tested everyone's patience, but that's
Ooh.
where teamwork and communication definitely mattered. And we kept reminding the client this is, temporary. Every challenge is just part of the story. And fortunately, that story turned out very beautiful. We definitely stayed patient. We adjusted strategy. There was a lot of pivoting moments throughout this transaction, and it ended up with a home that meant a lot to them, right?
Yes. I mean, just seeing their faces of happiness, the tears of happiness that happened when we signed and house was officially theirs, it made everything we went through so worth it. I'd do it again. I'm
Yes,
crazy, but I'd do it again.
exactly. So real estate isn't just about houses, it's about timing, growth, definitely big on mindset as well. Sometimes the delays a setup for something much better. And that's why having a team and that has great communication, that cares, definitely makes all the difference.
That's right. But if you are thinking that that sounds like you, credit score isn't great, maybe savings aren't quite there. As you can see, it's totally doable. It's totally possible for you to buy a home. And I want to emphasize in this market without any money in the bank. It's not ideal, but we can totally work with it and potentially get you to that finish line without having to spend any of your money.
Absolutely. You got this. Whoever's listening and that's been thinking about it and just been putting it in the back burner, the first step is just reaching out, finding information. And that's where we come in. We come in with knowledge, we come in with market um, data so that you can make an informed decision, right? Whether now's the time or not. And if not, Jess is here to go ahead and build you a plan. So she'll be able to build you a plan, walk you through it, and no matter how long it's going to take, we'll be here when you're ready.
That's right. We will not forget about you. I think that's very important in this business. A lot of people have told me that they experience this where they talk to a professional, they
Mhm. Where did she?
maybe
There you
get
go.
some, some of their questions answered, but then they never hear back from that professional again. They feel a little forgotten. They feel shrugged to the side, maybe because they're not quite ready to buy then. We won't forget you. We know what it takes to get someone to the finish line. And sometimes you're just not ready at that time, but you, gosh,
It happens. We're live.
I'm sorry. Are you guys still?
I'm here.
Sorry, my client is calling me more than once, and I think he thinks I don't know.
It's okay. Well, we'll let you go. We're at 20 minutes. It's all good. We wanted to hop on here, share our story. There's plenty more stories to come, but this is one of them. Very impactful, very meaningful. So I hope if you're on edge to just reach out, let us know what it is that you want to know, how to start. We're here for you. And, give me a call, give me a text. My number is 775-544-5011. Any last
Mine,
words, Jess?
yes, my number is
Yeah.
775-229-4175. You can call me or text me at that number, and I'll definitely make time to take care of you that same day and hopefully help you figure out where you're at.
Perfect. Y'all have a